How's it going, guys? I'm here with your WrestleMania 36 review. I hope everyone's doing well. I hope everyone's staying safe. Just a little bit of an intro here to do, about the current situation. If you're not here in New York, you probably have not felt the full brunt of what's going on in the world. And, I see some people, they don't believe it. If you lived here in New York, you'd very much believe what's going on. I just learned that someone I used to work with has actually passed away from this, and it's really very shocking. This is something that we're all gonna remember for years to come. Every day I'm hearing new things, and it's getting worse and worse. It truly is amazing that the WWE and Vince McMahon are pretending like this is not even occurring. And this is why you've been getting some impassioned rants from me on this. Because, this is very real, and McMahon is still on his kick of, getting pissed off about people sneezing and coughing and, and all this stuff. He's a madman. It's gotten to the point that this unstable maniac has actually decided to carry out his biggest show of the year in front of no fans in an empty arena in a training facility known as the Performance Center. And not just WrestleMania, but there's been numerous Raws and SmackDowns. There's Raws and SmackDowns taped to air after Mania. Tomorrow night, there's going to be a Raw. And then that following Friday is going to be a SmackDown. But there's going to be a period of time where there's no wrestling on TV. Because right now, they're not allowed to do anything else. They've enacted a stay-at-home mandate. So no one is allowed to film or do anything. There's not going to be any gatherings. And so McMahon's now... Isn't it funny? It takes the most, harsh rules and restrictions to hold McMahon holding him back from doing something he shouldn't have even been doing in the first place. Why does it need to come to that? Why does there even have to be mandates to tell people, in a situation like this, this is why they need to make rules and laws sometimes, because people just won't listen, and I'm not for vast control and all that, but sometimes, the law needs to be laid down because people are just putting others in danger. And McMahon is putting his own talent in danger. Bobby Lashley, Dana Brooke, Rey Mysterio. There's even rumors out that Lashley, prior to, taping his match against Aleister Black, which is going to be airing tonight, he just got over being sick. If you, want to believe that any part of McMahon, having a heart or having a soul or having a conscience is, still a viable claim, it's gone out the window. It's completely been refuted as a non-credible fact. It has now been confirmed that it is a fact that McMahon is completely heartless, completely egotistical, and he does not care what happens to his talent. As long as they dance like monkeys and they perform the circus act for him, then he's satisfied. And even still, he's probably not even satisfied. But regardless of that, let's start the review. I didn't even think I was going to be watching this show, but it turned out that I was I can't resist. See, that's the thing. Even in an empty arena, it's still WrestleMania. I still feel obligated to review it for you guys. So, a lot of it really does have to do with the review part. I know deep down if I wasn't reviewing it here on YouTube, I probably wouldn't be watching it because, first of all, watching these shows, you can tell from the reviews, I get nothing out of it. I get very little entertainment. I get very little enjoyment. I don't, feel any better. I feel, if anything, worse after watching these shows. So, at least I get to come here, entertain, crack a few jokes, have some fun. You guys seem to enjoy it, so I keep coming back every week. So, here we go. So, we start off with Stephanie McMahon, you know, saying they're providing a distraction, a diversion, to quote her, during this, what did she say? This terrible time, these unprecedented times, these uncertain times, like, because they're just not allowed to say it. And, you know, we're not allowed to say it either here on YouTube. But, you know, you get the point. They're not allowed to mention current events, right? So, okay. So with that in mind, you know, it's like this just feels very empty. There's nothing in place stating that the WWE can't say it. You're allowed to say it on TV. They say it on CNN. They say it on Fox News. They say it on MSNBC every single night, every single minute of the day. It's not a banned word, you know. So it's not, if you want to say that on TV or on your own network, like it's on the network, and they still won't say it. And, you know, it's not a distraction. Because, you know, first of all, everyone who now watches wrestling, watches the current product, there's like no casual fans. So everyone is familiar with the dirt sheets. Everyone knows the ins and outs of the business right now, you know, at least from a dirt sheet perspective. So they already know that something happened to Bobby Lashley. They already know about Dana Brooke, also Carmella, and obviously, where's Corey Graves, right? You know, Corey Graves just disappearing off TV. Well, he's also another one that's been sick too. So you have almost like, I don't know what, 8 to 10 people who have fallen ill and can't even participate. You know, the only one who was able to participate was Bobby Lashley. Everyone else, like Roman Reigns, such a smart guy, getting the hell out of there, trying to protect his family. Like, you can say what you want about Roman Reigns, but Roman Reigns should be now considered to be the smartest person on their active roster. Without a doubt. Because he got out of there. You heard his video on Instagram. You know, he said, basically, he's not putting his family at risk. He's not putting his kids at risk. He was like, you don't know my situation. People were tearing him down still. Disrespectful little punks on the internet that don't realize the severity of the situation going on. And so, you know, they tear into Roman Reigns. You won't wrestle for us. As much as they hate Roman Reigns, and like Roman Reigns even says in that Instagram video, you guys didn't even want me to show up for most of those Manias. Now you're criticizing me for not being there. You know, it's like, so pick one. You know, you want him to be there, you don't want him to be there, you know, and then you're going to jump on him when he decides to make the most logical decision and not compete. Roman Reigns, as well as many other people who are competing on this show, they have plenty of money. There's no reason why a guy like Orton, or I get it, a guy like Edge, you know, Edge was good for 9 years, didn't compete. And now he's gonna, he you know, this is the funny thing, his first singles match, he was at the Royal Rumble, so that was his first match back, technically. But, you know, he should have said, like, okay, we're not doing the Orton Edge match. And Orton should do the same thing. Like, this is not the way that Edge should come back to the ring. This is not the way that we should go about doing things. Like, this is the wrong time to be doing an Edge return. But they're going to do it anyway. That's going to be airing tonight on the network on part 2. So, here we go. So let's start the actual WrestleMania show, part 1. So Stephanie introduces it. Then we get Alexa Bliss, Nikki Cross defeating the Kabuki Warriors for the Women's Tag Team Championships. Like, these are belts that I constantly and consistently forget exist. And these belts have been in existence for more than a year. And, like, you can't even really remember. Like, who like won these belts first? How did it go? It went something to the effect of, who were the first champions? It was Sasha and Bayley. Then you had Peyton Royce and Billie Kay. Who was after that? Then I think it was Alexa and Cross. Then the Kabuki Warriors. And now it's back to Cross and Alexa. And I can't even tell you, like, I don't even know what's going on, like, with Nikki Cross, or, you know, what's going on with the characters of Asuka. It's, like, all over the place. Nikki Cross is not supposed to be the psychopath anymore. She's coming to the ring on this night, and she's turning around and showing her butt to the camera, doing, like, this sensual pose, And I'm like, isn't she not supposed to be that? Like, she kind of comes off as the more nerdy and like clueless one, and Alexa's supposed to be more of the sexy mean girl. Yeah, but she's playing that character, but she's a baby face, so it sort of doesn't make sense. And Asuka's being entertaining. She's screaming in Japanese. She's dancing around, you know. And I feel like Kairi Sane just doesn't get it. Like, everyone else is kind of being entertaining. Really, actually, Alexa Bliss, who I put on such a high pedestal, she's actually being boring. I will say that at least Nikki Cross is, you know, a little bit entertaining. This will also go down probably as one of the loudest matches in WrestleMania. You know, they're screaming at the top of their lungs in an empty arena. Asuka's screaming. Nikki Cross is screaming. It's not, and it wasn't really a bad match from like a wrestling perspective per se. Like, you know, it was okay. Like, you know, once again, we don't know how many times they stopped the cameras to fix botches. That's a really good point that Vince Russo brought up. Like, you know, there were times when you could see that there were moments when the camera could have been stopped to fix certain sections of matches. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But there was no reason for this to go on as long as it did. They could have easily shaved off a few minutes. I even saw Wade Keller, who likes long matches, even said, you know, shave this. Like, this is an opener. Like last year, even though it wasn't a great opener, they opened with the world title with Seth Rollins and Brock Lesnar. They opened with like a more important like match, a more eye-catching match. Like the tag titles, like everyone was even saying, and it was the same thing like when I said at the time, as much focus and as many matches as they give the women per show. And like this Mania over the 2 parts is going to be loaded up with tons of women's matches. They're kicking the show off with one. You know, it's complete, you know, overboard tactics. And, you know, you would think that they would at least put like more of an effort into pushing these titles. But like, they're barely even mentioned. You know, Asuka the past few weeks, like, it was almost like they even forgot that they were champions. You know, Nikki Cross, even on commentary, thought that the singles match was for the belts. Like, no one remembers these belts, like, who's the champions and anything. Like, even when they introduced the belts, they didn't even, like, do any fanfare. They were like, oh, by the way, we're going to be introducing these tag titles. And it was kind of like out of left field, where we're going to have a match for them. And they just all of a sudden, out of the blue, just introduce these belts. And, you know, there was no surprise that they kind of were put on the back burner. Like you've seen, they've just been put on the Kabuki Warriors. And they really didn't do anything throughout this tag title run. I didn't watch all the shows. You know, like you saw, like throughout like November and December, I didn't watch any of the shows. I didn't review them. So I don't know really what took place during that moment in time. I also didn't watch a great deal throughout 2019. So like, and obviously I didn't miss much, because from what I've seen, they've just kind of switched the belts around a few times. So there's no reason why they needed to dedicate all this time. Like, this match was like 15, 17 minutes long, and there wasn't really a whole lot to it. Like I said, the most memorable thing was the screaming and yelling. As weird as that sounds, that was the only thing that came across as like anything of any substance to me at all. And when you think about it, there is no substance. The funny thing is here, after this match, we have a promo in the back with Sami Zayn, and I forget what he's calling his little team. But he's in the back, and remember, we're at the Performance Center. How is it that they have the same exact setting as they do on Raw and SmackDown? Here's an LED screen with WrestleMania, you know, on it. They just have that picture right there, that logo, you know, right on the screen, playing constantly, consistently. It's not even like a moving image or anything like that. It's not animated anyway. How is it that they're at the Performance Center and they still have the same exact setting? There's nothing new. This is WrestleMania. Are we going to spruce it up a little bit? No. We're still going to have Zayn cut the promo right in front of the screen like we're on the typical episode of Raw and SmackDown. And think about this. The opening match, really, like, was that something that couldn't have been shown on a Raw or SmackDown? Did that feel grand? And I understand, like, we're also watching this and it's in front of no crowd and everything. There's no WrestleMania feel. And this is why I'm saying to myself, why didn't we just postpone the show? It's so ridiculous. Like, this is WrestleMania. Yes, they did do a little something extra with the stage and everything. And then I'm looking up also. I'm sorry, I got to go back to the match. But I'm seeing a ceiling fan spinning around. And I can't help but facepalm being like, it's so cheap looking. Like, okay, you know, maybe it's providing a little bit of air circulation. But really, how much? It's basically a warehouse. How, you know, much circulation could you be getting from that little fan? Like, couldn't they have, like, removed that or covered it up with something? Like, man, this really felt like backwoods ghetto WrestleMania if I ever did see it. So then we had King Corbin coming to the ring, and Baron Corbin cuts this promo about Elias not being there. You know, they replayed him falling off that platform, you know, a week ago from SmackDown. But Elias ends up coming in, and he wins with the schoolboy roll-up. And, you know, this was a pretty good match. I enjoyed it. I know the Smarks are going to hate it, but I liked it. It definitely was better than the opener. You know, definitely they didn't have to be. You know, it's like when they keep things simple. This is like, you know, a nice match with some good, you know, basics in it, you know, not getting too crazy. These are two guys that really work smart. They can have a good match. People, of course, won't credit it for being a good match, but this is finally Elias's, you know, his only WrestleMania match he's had. He's never had a WrestleMania match, and he's been on the main roster since 2017. Okay, so he obviously couldn't compete at WrestleMania in the year that, you know, he debuted because it was after Mania. But 2018, 2019, big, huge, massive crowds, 70,000 people, 80,000 people. How is it that Elias finally gets a match? Finally gets a match in front of people. You know, finally gets a match not in front of people. And it's you know, this is the year that they picked to do that. Now, okay, you know, we don't know. Maybe they had this planned already, that this was going to be Elias's year. But, wow. I mean, like, what a statement to make to this specific talent. Like, Elias, you know, we're finally going to give you your WrestleMania match that you've been longing to have. And guess what? It's going to be at WrestleMania 36, the one that just so happens to be taking place during a time where you can't be performing in front of an actual audience. And competing at the most forgettable WrestleMania of all time. How do you feel about that? It's like, you know, and also just the finish right here. It wasn't exactly a classic WrestleMania moment. It was a decent match. I enjoyed it for what it was, I suppose. I also, you know, the one thing I did like is the audibility of the wrestlers during this. That, you know, if there's one thing, even though the crowd I despise, and I've said numerous times how much I hate the crowd, and I hate the "this is awesome" chants and all these, you know, these cookie cutter chants that they've been doing throughout the years, that the UK crowd started and the Ring of Honor crowds made popular. You know, it really takes away that there's no one here watching. I can't describe it. I know it sounds weird. I know it even sounds somewhat hypocritical, but wrestling needs an audience. It would be the same thing as watching a Major League Baseball game in front of no audience, or watching an NBA game in front of no audience. There's just something with having people in the shot who are also there, well, enjoying the event, I suppose, you know. But really, it does take away from it, whether the fans are annoying or not. But I did like hearing Corbin mouth off to the referee. You know, how Corbin then, you know, leaned on the ropes and yelled at JBL and Cole at, you know, to ringside. He says, "You better be telling everybody how great I am." There was little touches like that where you couldn't get that during a normal broadcast. It's not much, I know, but it was something. Like, if I could just bring something positive to the table here to say about this WrestleMania, about these shows, it's the you know, the audibles of the wrestlers. I kind of like that. Then we had Becky Lynch defeating Shayna Baszler, and this was probably the most shocking result. And it really shows like nothing means anything anymore with the WWE. So you book a whole elimination chamber around Shayna Baszler. You made us watch this pay-per-view, and you made us believe that Shayna Baszler is unstoppable. For the first time ever, someone actually eliminated and won every single person in the chamber match. So we're all like, here like, man, you know, I even said it, you know, that was pretty good booking. You're making Shayna Baszler look like a big star. You're making her look like something. She's coming in there, tearing through everybody. So I obviously have to say, like, okay, if you're trying to establish her as a monster heel, then you've done a pretty decent job. As you know, better than anything I've seen in the current era. You know, is trying to establish someone as dominant. I couldn't really think of, you know, a better way offhand than to just have her come in and dominate everybody. Of course, there are better ways, but I'm saying, you know, the most basic way would have them to come in there and, like, you know, dominate in a match like that. So, you know, we had her, you know, biting Becky, you know, numerous other things, which, you know, the biting was probably the most ridiculous thing. But we have all this, like, build. I will say that it was, you know, it wasn't build that I liked, but there was build. There definitely was some build. But it seems that it turned out that build was just a bunch of crap. It was just a bunch of garbage, basically. It basically was like piling up a bunch of garbage bags and then, you know, just doing nothing with them. You know, just letting them stand around and stink up the place. And doing nothing with them. Because what happens when the big WrestleMania match comes? Becky Lynch gets the pin. She does that float over pin that Bret Hart did at Survivor Series 96, whatever it's called, and she traps Shayna Baszler in the pin, you know. And it's also like an even Stevens 50-50 type of booking match, where Shayna's, you know, she's getting a little bit of some, you know, hard-hitting offense in. But, like, where's the monster? Becky Lynch wins and that's it? Shayna doesn't even beat her down after the bell or anything like that? I mean, you know, you wasted everyone's time just like you always do. But, like, really here, this is, you basically took all your women and says, you know what, we're going to put Shayna over all of you. You're all worthless. There's no way you can stand up to Baszler. But Becky Lynch comes, and can I say something here also about her coming in on this semi-tractor trailer? How ridiculous that looks. Like, you know, if we're trying to be Stone Cold Steve Austin, he comes in a pickup truck. That makes sense. That's what people drive around. Why is Becky Lynch driving a semi? Well, how does that make any sense? Why would you drive a semi? Why would you drive a semi to a wrestling arena? And I get it, suspension of disbelief, but a truck? Like, you know, those are used for hauling trailers. You know, this is usually used for, you know, an 18-wheeler setup. You know, she's not transporting cargo. She's not transporting goods. Like, what? How stupid does that look? And she's got her face, like, painted on it. I'm just like, who comes up with these ideas? Was that her idea? Was that Vince's idea to drive a semi to, you know, okay. I haven't ranted on it, but that's, you know, on Raw, you know, and I mean on Raw, that she's been driving this to the arena. And I think it looks so ridiculous and so cringy. If she really lives up to her name, Cringy Lynch. But I can't believe, you know, okay, so they wanted to make the finish unpredictable, especially because it was taped. Surprisingly, no spoilers got out. You know, they had multiple finishes supposedly taped for this, but, like, this was a finish that just, you know, if you're going to have Becky win, you know, once again, it's one of those cutesy, finishes it. And you just had Elias win with a roll-up. You're going to have Becky win the same way. Truly cringy. Then we had Daniel Bryan and Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn goes over. It was basically Sami Zayn running around the ring. And here's the thing about this. So Sami Zayn was like put in, the ladder match a few years back at WrestleMania. He's also like shown to be Bryan's equal. Him and Kevin Owens squaring off against Daniel Bryan and Shane McMahon when Daniel Bryan returned to the ring after his career-threatening, retirement injury, all the concussions. And now they're trying to make Zayn out to be, the wimpy manager type, which I actually like. It's just ridiculous, though, that, like, it was only 2 years ago. And like, I see that it really started to come back to me. And I was thinking about old Sami Zayn's, like, moments and how he was portrayed in the past. And how he was like Kevin Owens' equal. And here he's like begging and crying and everything. And I'm like, I like this character for him. It's definitely better than trying to portray him as a world-class athlete. Like they were trying to make him out in the past. It's a character. It's something. And he's actually doing it pretty well. And I've been praising him for that. I got to give just dues where they are due, of course. So that's what we do here on this channel. But like, he's running around and everything, and, it's just, I wasn't getting anything out of this, and the one thing that kept detracting from it is, like, I can't help but think, this is Daniel Bryan. You showed us, back in 2014, that this guy is capable of beating Triple H, Randy Orton, and Batista in the same night. So I'm sorry if I can't turn my brain off when you have him go over all those big names and then say to me, well, he's just good enough to face Sami Zayn for the Intercontinental title. First of all, why would he settle on the IC title when he's already had the big belts? It looks stupid. It's an insult. And there's no surprise that Daniel Bryan is considering actual retirement this time. So he came back. Without a doubt, that retirement has to do a little something with his booking. I mean, you come back and they, and they're making you look like a total goof. They're also making you look horrible by having you get trained by Drew Gulak, a guy who wasn't even on the show. You're being trained by a guy who's never even wrestled at WrestleMania. He wrestled on the pre-show against Cesaro. And you're getting trained by the guy who's not even good enough to get on the main show. So they're making like that Bryan has to learn from Gulak. Not like Gulak is supposed to learn from Bryan, who's a former world champion. Because that would make too much sense. Like, I don't get it. I don't understand how this is a thing. And I've been saying this since the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view. How is this supposed to be believable? Even when Sami Zayn is cutting promos saying he's taking advice from a nobody. Exactly. When they cut promos and the truth comes out, it looks just horrible. And that is what we're seeing here. And, that's what was running through my mind during this whole match. It's like Bryan came out of retirement, risking his life. He's risking his very health. First of all, not only is he risking contracting something very serious by even being out here in the first place, but he's also risking another, concussion, which we don't know if he gets another one of those, what can happen to him. It's brain damage. Daniel Bryan has brain damage. That's irreversible. He might have went for therapy. The condition might have improved well enough that he was able to come back, but that kind of thing sticks with you. You've seen what's happened in the past. Remember, Benoit. Ooh, yeah, remember that one? Okay, so let's move on before, we get a bit too much there. Then we have John Morrison defeating Jimmy Uso and Kofi Kingston in a ladder match. And once again, running through my mind is The Miz. Why is this a triple threat and not a triple, threat tag team match? It's because of The Miz getting sick. Oh, well, you know, here we are still going on with the show. The show must go on. John Morrison is an incredible athlete. Like, I'm looking at this guy through this match, and he's basically outshining everybody. I'm just saying, the looks, he's improved his mic skills, walking from one end of the rope to the other, and then, you know, hitting the Spanish fly is just, you know, incredible. He's an amazing athlete. And this guy is, you know, very smooth in the ring. Then we had the finish at the end. Everyone, like, grabs the belts off the hooks, and they're all struggling. Then John Morrison falls, and he grabs the belts, you know, off of that little holder or whatever it's called. And he, ends up being the winner. That was actually a pretty brutal bump at the end. And I can't help but think they're bumping, they're doing all these high spots, and no one is even around to see it. That is the most depressing thing of all. Like, these guys are going all out. They're putting everything on the line. They're putting the bodies on the line. They're, you know, they're trying the best they can. They're trying their damnedest given the situation. And they're doing what they do best. And no one's around to see it. This is what I'm saying. Why couldn't it be postponed? Why do we have to take casualties along the way of The Miz and others? I mean, don't they, you know, aren't the wrestlers even thinking about this as they're competing? Dana Brooke, you know, The Miz, Rey Mysterio, all the, you know, Corey Graves is there. You know, they're looking to ringside. Corey Graves is not there commentating. It's like, don't they kind of think like, well, you know, this is pretty serious. Like, what are we doing here? Why is McMahon making us do this? Why is he approving it? All those thoughts have to be running through their heads. It was a decent match. You know, like I said, Morrison really did some, you know, pretty cool things in here. But I can't help but think he's so much more. And is it not funny to anyone that a year ago, Kofi Kingston is in this match, this, like, you know, weirdly booked match where they took away their partners and it's just halves of tag teams wrestling for the tag titles. It's crazy. And he was wrestling Daniel Bryan and winning the world championship last year at Mania. And now he's, like, wrestling for the tag belts in this, like, crazy, you know, effed up match. I mean, there you go. That's Vince McMahon for you. That's the WWE, folks. After that, we have Gronk, who, you know, he's been the host and everything. He says that he could host a party that ends 30 hours later. I hope WrestleMania is not going to be 30 hours, but you get the point. Mojo is there with him. R-Truth runs onto the set, and Gronk goes, you know, for the 24/7 belt. The funny thing is he gives him like an elbow. This is like enough to have R-Truth laid out like he was hit by a Mack truck. Then Mojo pushes him out of the way, gets the 24/7 championship, and that's about it. Like, not for nothing, but Gronk is not really doing all that much as a host. You know, he just said a few things, and I don't know. You know, they're making like this guy is like some type of party animal or something. Like, I don't know why they're giving him this gimmick. It's, you know, I'm not a sports fan, as all of you know, but I hear that Rob Gronkowski was like a badass in football. He was a tough guy. Like, so why now is he this gyrating, you know, like wearing all these loud colors goofball? You know, like, this is the same thing with Ronda Rousey. Like, they're not in tune with who these people were in their respective professions. You know, they, like, once again, Ronda Rousey's the smiling, waving, I'm happy to be here character. And in the UFC, she was, you know, a no-nonsense badass. So, like, it's apparently, you know, they just have no idea who these people are. They know that there's somebody, and, you know, they sign them, and then they have no idea what made those people special in the first place. But I just don't see. I think that probably Rousey will have, you know, go down as having more success than Gronkowski, because, like, already this is, you know, bad. At least, like, Rousey started off somewhat strong. Then we had Kevin Owens defeating Seth Rollins by disqualification. Rollins hits him with the bell. Then they restart the match as a no disqualification match. And this was better than expected, to be quite honest. You know, we had then Owens climb up on the WrestleMania. So, like, once again, we're taking these huge, massive chances, and no one's even around to see it. Owens drops the elbow off the sign, going through the table. I have to, like, question, you know, was that edited at all? You know, I can't really tell, but, like, it really did seem, you know, where there was definitely an edit in the ladder match. If we could go back one match and talk about this for a moment. There was a, when Jimmy Uso was at the top of the ladder and he was pushed off, the camera did not show where Jimmy landed. And I was like, that's weird, because usually Kevin Dunn would be right there and make sure that that shot, you know, landed on the camera. It did not happen. And I have to think that something happened with that spot that they decided to, you know, put that one out of frame. So it's just interesting to note that, but I don't know. I'm just thinking with some of these dangerous spots, like how much, you know, manipulation did we see? How much did the editing software get a workout for this broadcast? I don't know, but everything was pretty good. I like that after he did that big spot, he just, you know, they sold it. He rolls him into the ring, hit the stunner, and pins Rollins. Like, I will give them that. Usually, when a match involves Rollins, you know, we're going to have 10,000 curb stomps. We're going to have, you know, 1,000 different kickouts. But I got to say, credit to both of these guys. It wasn't that over the top. It wasn't, you know, a lot of craziness. You know, just to say, like, an empty arena to put a big spot like that, you know, on, you know, when you don't have a huge crowd there to cheer it on, kind of, you know, took a lot away from it. But, you know, if they were going to have that spot, at least they did it in a way where, you know, there was a bit of payoff to it, that it actually, like, ended the match for a change. Then we had Paul Heyman backstage, who scares Charlie because, once again, people are able to sneak up behind others in an empty arena. And I just find it funny that, like, Charlie is designated to stand in that same exact spot where that WrestleMania sign is, where Sami Zayn was earlier in the night. This is the spot you're going to stand. We're not even in an arena, but we still have the same exact setup. With, like, and it's always, like, I just can't get over just how bland that setup is. And how it looks, and, like, how it's so generic, where there should just be an arrow pointing down, like, stand here. Like, and that's where it all takes place. And Heyman is, you know, like, just, this guy's face is just so mad. I just can't stand looking at him anymore. This guy, he's just a fat, annoying POS. I mean, seriously. And I'm talking about, this is someone, coming from someone I've said in the past, where I liked Heyman. I like the promos he used to cut. I used to like, you know, his commentary when he replaced Lawler in 2001. It was stellar commentary. Him and JR had good rapport. He was good. There was a time where I was a Heyman fan. But now, I am a Heyman hater. I just cannot stand seeing this guy, looking at this guy. He greatly detracts from the show. I'm going to go as far as that. And it's been the same exact promo for 5 years running. I mean, you know, get new material, like, switch it up. Like, it's like they're making like this is an award-winning formula, and it's not like anyone is really enjoying it. Was he gets the crowd to say, you know, my name is Paul Heyman along with him? Is that really worth it to keep repeating the same thing over and over and over? And, you know, based on, like, how Heyman is and what he has said in interviews, like, he thinks that he's really good. He thinks what he's doing is, like, selling Brock Lesnar, and he's making, like, you know, he is really like a pinnacle selling point for him. But if anything, he's taking away from him. I don't get it. Brock is capable of cutting good promos. We've seen it in 2003. He used to do it all by himself, and he's fine on the mic. He's not stellar, but he's fine. He's good. He can do it. I'd rather that than the overly cartoonish, over-the-top Paul Heyman, all red in the face and just all this fat just flapping around, on that triple, quadruple chin of his. Just, I mean, it's obviously never going to stop as long as they have Lesnar around, but, you really could see, because this is the guy who's supposedly responsible for, being head of creative on Raw. And the fact that the show stinks this much, we know that a lot of that also has to do with Heyman. I mean, this is not the same Paul Heyman from years ago that used to actually write good episodes of SmackDown. This is a Heyman that is tired, that, is just, out of touch. And he used to make, remember why he left the WWE in the first place? Because McMahon was out of touch, because McMahon would not hear him out. And now all of a sudden, Heyman is back to saying that McMahon is a genius, and all of a sudden, all of that gets erased. And Heyman is now one of the most out of touch characters on the show. How poetic, right? Then we get Braun Strowman defeating Goldberg. And, here's the funny thing about this. It was the same thing like what Elias. Anything could have taken place. They booked Bobby Lashley and Aleister Black at the last minute. But it almost seemed like Braun Strowman was not even scheduled to have a match. He didn't even have a match on the main show last year. I think it's just hilarious how this is a guy that they constantly keep building. They give him these big wins. Having him in this match after, being pinned by Sami Zayn. I get it was a handicap match and all that. But he had a short-lived run as Intercontinental Champion. I can't help but feel that this is like one of the most ridiculous looking things. Like, Roman Reigns came in there and beat Goldberg for the title, I would have been all for it. I would have been like, that was a great moment for Roman Reigns. It adds something else to his list. You could say he's beaten John Cena, The Undertaker. This guy is now beating Goldberg. This guy is cemented a legacy, and now that was like the perfect way to transition him into the champion again. And get Roman Reigns back to being, a world champion as a top main eventer. Okay, that would have been fine. Now, Roman Reigns did what he had to do, and I said I am behind him 100%. This is exactly what, more people on the roster should have done. They should have given the middle finger to McMahon. Now, I get it. Other people, don't make as much money as Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns does. He's got enough money to tide him over for a while now. But, he did what he had to do. And I respect the man wholeheartedly for that. I've respected Reigns long before that. And, Braun Strowman comes into this match. First of all, I don't get, I've been saying this for 2 weeks. We already knew for 2 weeks now, there were 2 SmackDowns where they could have worked something out, having Braun Strowman worked into this match with Goldberg. There was nothing of it. Just on the last episode of SmackDown on Friday, they just said, oh, by the way, Braun Strowman is now going to be facing Goldberg. No explanation of anything. It's like we're living in an alternate universe. What is it with WWE? Like, they want to just avoid controversy. Why do we have to pretend like one of the biggest stars in your company just magically disappeared? They're so scared of any sort of controversy. This was a company that was the epitome of controversial storylines, Crash TV. Now, of course, that was in large part, due to Brian Gerwitz and Vince Russo, of course, who pioneered the whole thing, and Ed Ferrara, and when McMahon was in a whole different mindset, when his worldview was changed, significantly by those individuals. Now it's like, oh, we can't say the name, we can't say what happened with Reigns, they just work themselves in. Like, how ridiculous does this look to the rest of the world? Like, we're watching this show, they're wrestling in front of an empty arena, and it's not even an arena. It's a performance center. It's a freaking warehouse. And a guy pulls out for a match you've been promoting for months now, And now, all of a sudden, he's not there. Cue up Braun Strowman. And Braun Strowman is launched into this match with Goldberg. Goldberg, now, I don't know what it is. They just keep having him do spears constantly. Like, they can't let him do any of those kicks or anything like that. Okay, so, Goldberg hits the 4 spears. Braun gets up, hits 3 power slams. Braun is your Universal Champion. So, it's like, I don't get it. Like, first of all, I'm sorry to say it for people that, hate on him. Goldberg should have won here. This was so ridiculous. This was so stupid to have Braun Strowman. First of all, they're not even going to have shows for a few weeks, because they've only taped so much. And I know this is going to go on way beyond, just a couple of months. So they should have just had Goldberg hold on to it. I'm just, honestly, they should have had him hold on to it, whatever they could, if they're able to do events again at Survivor Series or what have you, or just the next pay-per-view, have Roman Reigns beat Goldberg, and just have it at that. This is the perfect reason of why this event should have been postponed. You gave Braun Strowman the biggest win of his career over Goldberg, and no one's even around to see it. He wasn't even originally booked. He was shoehorned in there. This was the very definition of shoehorning somebody into something. And there you go. Braun Strowman's your new Universal Champion. And not one F was given, folks. Not a single one, to be quite honest. I mean, who would really give 2 craps about someone winning this belt, this career-defining moment? Like, listen, I get it. This guy showed up late and everything, but now all of a sudden it's like, well, Roman's out. I would have said give it to somebody else. I don't know who you could have given it to on this show offhand. I would have even said switch a few things around, give it to Edge, give it to Orton, but to Braun Strowman of all people. And I was singing the praises of Braun Strowman, but you put this guy in a position where he shouldn't be a world champion. I'm sorry. This guy is way too inconsistent to be a world champion. People like Orton are more consistent. I'm just saying this is probably the worst possible pick that you could have given the belt to. It looked ridiculous to have all of a sudden Strowman is this big dominant monster out of nowhere. He he can't even beat Sami Zayn, but somehow he's able to dominate Goldberg. Goldberg is the guy that beat The Fiend, beat this, otherworldly monster heel. I mean, to say that this was probably the most ridiculous decisions that they could have reached is an understatement. And I don't hate Braun Strowman. I'm just saying it looked ridiculous. And, this is what happens when you're not good to your talent. You don't protect your talent. And you get moments like this. You're backed up against the wall. You made the worst possible pick. And they should have just had Goldberg hold on to it. Honestly, they shouldn't even been holding this event. Anyway, let's talk about the main event. And I want to actually talk about the main event. So up to this part, nothing was thrilling. Like I said, okay, it wasn't really horrible or terrible, the matches. By default, the event was horrible because it's just silly all around. But in the main event, it was finally I think Jeremy Borash was involved in this. What am I talking about if you didn't see the event? I will recommend this one match to you. This one segment, shall we say. Because it was actually genuinely good. And I actually, for the first time in a long time, actually want to talk about something that was actually pretty thrilling to watch. Okay, maybe thrilling is a little bit of an overstatement. No, but it was good. It was really, really good. And it was well produced. And there's no way that McMahon had any involvement on this. There's no way anyone on the creative team that does Raw and SmackDown, Paul Heyman, there's no way Bruce Pritchard had any involvement in this. This was Jeremy Borash and maybe someone else, maybe Undertaker, I don't know. they decided, let's not have a normal match. The Boneyard match, which, yes, it was like a match that people were saying, like, what is this? They're not even saying what it is. I was even ranting against it. I'm like, a Boneyard match? I mean, come on, like, what are we doing here? And then they show us that AJ Styles comes out of a casket. He's pulled out of a hearse, which was a funny visual. Then all of a sudden, I start hearing Now That We're Dead from Metallica, hardwired to self-destruct. Undertaker's got the bandana. He's got the bike. It's the Titan bike. It might have been a Harley. He used to ride Titans. He comes, they're at a graveyard. Pulls in on the bike. He's got the bandana. He's got his biker's vest. It's got the Undertaker symbol on the back. It's a hybrid gimmick. I'm liking it. I don't know why when he was building up for the match, he just had that weird looking bandana, but now he had the actual bandana. And Taker was looking good. Taker was looking in great shape. And then they just had like the best, very, very inspired by the final deletion. And that's obviously, it's going to draw a lot of comparisons. I hear people saying it's a ripoff, but people, even the smarks, genuinely enjoyed this. And so did I. First of all, they filmed it with that, not like what you normally see. It was like on a higher quality, like digital type of film. Like it was a crisper image. It looked cinematic. And you just had, Gallows and Anderson sent druids after Taker. He beats them all up. They're fighting all around. Taker is trash-talking AJ. AJ is trash-talking Taker. AJ bashes him in the back with a shovel. And there's music playing in the background. It's a creepy atmosphere. There's fog in there. Then, AJ gets Taker into an open grave. He goes into a dump truck. Taker appears behind them, showing that it's a hybrid between the two characters. Taker chokeslams him off of a balcony, throws him into the pit. Also, I kind of like the part where he was toying with AJ. He's like, you gave me a good fight. Then he kicks him into the grave. Dumps the dirt on top of him. AJ's hand is like coming out of it. You guys have to watch it. It was well put together. It was well produced. This is so much better than a regular match. You guys know, you could go back a few years and hear me talk about when TNA, when Impact Wrestling aired the final deletion and Delete or Decay, and how much I enjoyed those segments. And I don't like Impact at all. I think it's such a lousy promotion now. Tessa Blanchard's the world champion, speaks for itself. This was very good. This was a surprise. This was something that, renewed my spirits. I was like this during Mania, and then this came on, I was like this, because it wasn't taking place in the arena. We didn't have to stare at empty seats, no crowd reaction. This made sense to have this in the main event. This felt exciting, especially after Braun Strowman and Goldberg just put me in a bad mood. This lifted my spirits. This felt like something that, was a good way of getting around the fact that they couldn't do, a stimulating piece of television or a pay-per-view or an event in an empty venue. They actually grew a brain, and I knew this was Jeremy Borash. There's no way that this was not him. This was so well done, and I gotta give credit where credit's due. For the first time in a while, this is the best piece of business that they've had in years, and that's not hyperbole. That is a real genuine statement. I really liked it. I liked the way it was done, edited, very well produced, very well shot. I liked it as a whole. You could say, just like anything, maybe it could be a bit campy. You could look at it like kind of like, oh, this is a wrestling event taking place outside in the graveyard. Isn't this a bit hokey? But I enjoyed the effort, and it was still cool in that way. Things could be a little campy and hokey and still be cool. It is possible, and this was a great example of it. So this was a show that's extremely forgettable. There's no way I'm saying it's good, but that last piece of business was really something to see. And I think that anyone who's really watched at any point should at least give it a try and see, you know, what they think of it. I think at the very least you'll be entranced in the originality. I think you might just at least be entertained by it. I'm not saying it's going to blow your mind, but you'll find it entertaining. It's something that you could say is a distraction of sorts, you know, but it was good. But yeah, part 2 is tonight, so you'll be getting a review of that as well. I still can't believe that they're doing this. They should not be doing this. They should have postponed it, and it really shows. But there you go, guys. I hope you all enjoyed the review. I'll see you for part 2. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Click the bell so you get all the notifications when I post all my new videos. And guys, please stay safe out there, and I'll see you next time.